the collapse of the paper tower, the era of digital commodities and multipolarity. Currently, the illusion is cracking. For decades, we lived in a world where wealth was defined by numbers on a screen and promises backed by a single flag. We were told the US dollar was as good as gold, perhaps even better. But what happens when the world realizes that the gold is just paper and the value is just an illusion? We are now witnessing the most significant tectonic shift in financial history, the collapse of the paper tower. The era of the petrodollar is dying, and in its place, a multipolar world built on tangible assets, energy, manufacturing, and physical gold is rising from the ashes. Breaking the monopoly, the decentralized nervous system. For half a century, the petrodollar was more than just a currency. It was the world's financial nervous system. If you wanted to buy oil, you needed dollars. If you wanted to trade globally, you had to use the SWIFT system, a highway controlled entirely by Washington. With one stroke of a pen, a nation could be disconnected from the world, effectively starving its economy. But the monopoly is breaking. Today, alternative highways are emerging that no single power can block. Systems like mBridge, the multi-CBDC bridge, and BRICS Pay are no longer just theories, they are active infrastructures. These platforms allow nations to bypass the dollar entirely, trading in local currencies or digital assets instantly. The consequence: the Great Reflux. The world no longer needs to hoard massive mountains of US treasuries just to survive. As the demand for dollars plummets globally, trillions of greenbacks are starting to come home. This is the Great Reflux. When these excess dollars flood back into the American domestic market, they bring with them a tidal wave of hyperinflation that no interest rate hike can stop. The War of the Two Golds, physical versus paper. In the old world, the price of gold was a paradox. It was imprisoned by Western futures markets, the LBMA and COMEX. Here, gold is traded on paper at a ratio of nearly 100 to 1 against actual physical reserves. The price was manipulated by selling gold that didn't exist to keep the dollar looking strong. But the East is tired of the game. Led by China and Russia, the Eastern Bloc is moving the center of gravity to the Shanghai Gold Exchange. Their rule is simple: 100% physical delivery. No paper, no leverage, no lies. We are witnessing a decoupling. Paper gold contracts, tied to the sinking USD, are losing credibility. Meanwhile, physical gold, the kind you can hold, weigh, and lock in a vault, is becoming an invaluable prime asset. Nations are returning to an ancient but honest standard. True wealth is what you have in your hand, not what a bank promises you on a digital ledger. The rise of the energy token, money you can burn. While the West distracted itself with speculative bubbles and meme coins, the East was building something more grounded, the energy-based currency. In this new digital era, the dominant currency won't be Bitcoin or a volatile fiat coin, it will be the energy token. China and its allies are beginning to peg their digital currencies not to the dollar, but to units of energy, barrels of oil, cubic meters of gas, or kilowatt hours and manufacturing capacity. This is the ultimate evolution of money. If you hold this currency, you aren't just holding a promise, you are holding a guaranteed claim on energy or high-tech manufactured goods. Compare this to the US dollar, backed by a government buried under $34 trillion in debt and a shrinking industrial base. Which one is the safe haven? The choice for the global south is becoming obvious. Fragmented hegemony. A world without a single cop. The petrodollar was the invisible fuel for the American war machine. It allowed the US to fund a global military presence, 800 bases worldwide, without ever having to balance its own checkbook. As the dollar fades, so does the single cop of the world. Geopolitical outposts like Israel, which functioned under the financial and military umbrella of US hegemony, are finding that the umbrella is leaking. The financial capacity to sustain endless proxy wars is evaporating. Power is shifting to those who hold the valves and the factories. The valves, controlled by the likes of Iran and Russia. The factories, controlled by the industrial might of China. In this new world, prosperity isn't measured by a bloated GDP fueled by service sectors and debt. It's measured by energy and food security. People in nations that have the courage to de-dollarize are starting to see price stability. Why? because they are no longer importing the inflation created by Washington's printing presses. The nuclear question. Is World War III inevitable? When an empire loses its primary weapon, the dollar, it often becomes more aggressive. A cornered tiger is dangerous. This leads many to ask, will this end in a nuclear mushroom cloud? While the risk is real, we must look past the Hollywood lens. The doctrine of mutually assured destruction, or called MAD, remains a powerful deterrent. The global elite, whether in New York, London, or Beijing, all want a world that is physically intact to rule over. There is no profit in a radioactive wasteland. The Third World War is already happening, but it's not being fought with ICBMs. It is a silent war. 1. Cyber warfare. Crashing grids and stealing data. 2. Economic warfare. Sanctions, de-dollarization, and trade blocks. 3. Proxy warfare. Using regional conflicts to bleed an opponent's resources. We no longer live in an era where the US can drop a bomb without consequence. The multipolar bloc is solid, nuclear-armed, and economically integrated. The transition will be volatile and chaotic, but it is a transition toward a reality where America is just one player at the table, not the referee, and certainly not the owner of the stadium. Conclusion. The end of the illusion. The money illusion is the belief that debt is wealth and paper is value. That era is over. We are returning to a world of real things. As the paper tower collapses, the question isn't whether the dollar will fall, but whether you are prepared for what comes next. The era of the petrodollar was a chapter. The era of the multipolar world is the new book.